Hey guys, this is Snap. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about our Atlas progression plans for the 3.18 Sentinel expansion, as well as go over the current juicing meta in the expansion as well as how it affects 6-man parties as well as lower party size MF groups. If you haven't yet, check out my previous video on all of the builds we're going to be playing during the Sentinel expansion. It's a good place to start so you can kind of get a grip on what kind of builds we're going to be playing, as well as some suggestions for your 2, 3, or 4-man party. One quick correction I want to make to one of the POBs that I posted in the previous video is to the duo build for Stormcall. I think if you're in a duo, I think one of the best gloves you can equip is Abhorrent Interrogation. This helps solve the pen problem. You don't really need to have any investment in penetration. These gloves are super underrated. An easy replacement for your southbounds and a very excellent choice in a duo if you do not have a curse bot. I think originally I had southbounds on, and these gloves are definitely a better choice. Equip these if you can. Anyways, moving on. Anyways, getting right into it, I made this quick diagram for you all that you can see all of the beginner builds and what they're transitioning into and which atlas they're assigned. And I'm going to be going in depth about kind of what these atlases are designed to do. I'm going to be including a pastebin link in the description that has all of the atlas trees linked here that are assigned for each of these. I do keep that pastebin up to date with all of our most recent changes. So if you're looking for the most recent atlas choices we've been going with, I definitely go there. The new atlas tree has not been pushed to the website yet. And when that gets updated, I will go ahead and update the pastebin with the most up-to-date information as well as the most up-to-date atlas tree links. So the basics are we split our atlases into 2 different groups, 3 of them being full atlases and 2 of them being partial atlases because we're doing a total of 5. At a glance, 5 might seem like a big overkill. However, completely necessary to sustain alvas as well as conquerors. You essentially need a rotation of 3 people that are putting in maps in a cycle in order to sustain alvas at a sufficient rate without having to run hundreds of maps over and over again. These full atlas builds want to have as many points into the juice content as possible and are all going to have an identical atlas. The 4th atlas you're going to have is a ruckus atlas, or whatever atlas you want to use early to generate currency. We are really banking on a ruckus strategy where we're just mass producing chaos early on. However, if you do have a low level money making strategy that you want to pursue, whether that's like Blight or Bestiary or whatever low level heist, you can do all of those things. In our case, we just have a 3-man team with shitter MF gear with the Aura bot and the curse bot just doing the chaos recipe while they get some extra completions, and the curse bot can also teleport out of the map at any time and go do chaos recipe if necessary. The 5th atlas is an alva generation and conqueror map generation tool. Essentially, you get as many points as you need on the alva atlas to take all of the additional mission chance as well as grab every single map duplication node as well. The alva generation should be quite obvious as to why that's necessary, as if any of the full juicer people were to be taking this notable, it would essentially be wasted points that could have been going towards juice in the map. So it's best to have it on somebody that doesn't have a full juicer atlas and can be socketing maps in for the other 3 people to be getting missions off of. On top of that, you can grab useful stuff like the extra sextant, and then you can be a dedicated sextant roller for the party as well. If you aren't familiar why conqueror maps are necessary, it is just this node right here on the atlas tree, which reads 20% increased quantity of items found in conqueror maps, and conqueror maps have a 20% increased pack size, which is massive. And for those who are unaware, in the 3.18 patch, you can actually have more than 1 influence on your map at a time, which is a gigantic buff. This means that you can get your conqueror maps with martial forces and get the quantity and pack size, as well as getting all of the eldritch altars and stuff back on your map, which can add a ton of pack size as well. So it's becoming even more mandatory to make all of your maps conqueror maps. The way you generate these maps is obviously through the sextant. You can buy the sextant on trade. It's probably going to cost you like an X for 4 charges is typically the going rate. And then this gives you 4 charges of the map bosses drop an additional conqueror map. And then all you have to do is socket this in and go and run the map. You put 12 favorites on your cemetery or burial chamber or whatever you're running, and it has about a 50% chance to be that map. And that's on the 3.17 patch. Now there are some new keystones that will increase your duplication chance as well as your favorite chance, which we'll get into a little bit later when we go over some of the new keystones that'll affect this strategy. So that's kind of the basics of the atlas split and who is assigned what and what people are going to be transitioning to. I do get a lot of questions on what exactly the Alva and the Conqueror Atlas is doing, and hopefully that should be a brief explanation on why it's so good. Basically another atlas that doesn't waste points on the Juicer Atlas, and then you can generate everybody else Alva missions as well as Conqueror maps, and also get the 4-charge Sextant without wasting any points. It should be pretty straightforward. So a quick footnote on how all of this works post-campaign. The 3 carries, which are doing the full atlas are all sharing completion, as well as inviting the 2 other people that are doing partial atlases, which in our case is the Kohler and the Orobot. You need something like 30 points to put together a Ruckus atlas that can start to do the chaos recipe, so you're really only porting in for maybe like 30 minutes or something like that, or maybe an hour while you're in the Blood Aqueducts to get all of that bonus to be able to do Ruckus strats. And I think for the full Alva and Conqueror atlas, it takes something like 65 or 70 points, so it's going to be a little bit longer for the Orobot, but as soon as you have enough points to complete that atlas, they no longer need to participate in getting all of those bonuses. However, the Alva atlas does need to get all 4 Watchstones as well as all of the favorite slots, which can be a little bit of a pain in the ass. You can share a lot of that completion, however. Now that that's out of the way, we can kind of go over some of the new keystones that they've been revealing and how it might impact the juicing strategy that we have set up now. First one they revealed here is Singular Focus, which gives your maps 200% more chance to be favored maps, and then non-favored maps get converted into basic currency items instead. Now, there are 2 angles at which we can consider using this. One of them is on the Juicer Atlas. Because the endgame strat, all of your maps are technically generated using the Conqueror Sextant, the only maps you need to be dropping while farming on, let's say, Cemetery are maps that you want to farm for Alva missions, and you only need to farm as many maps as you want Alva missions. And then any missions past that, you can use this node to just convert into currency. So let's say, for example, we're running Cemetery and we want to run Mesa to generate our Alva missions because it's a very quick boss kill. I think you can spec and unspec this node over and over again as your map pool of Mesas goes up and down. So let's say if you're mapping at the start of the day and you generate 100 Mesas, once you have those 100 Mesas, you could perhaps spec this node Singular Focus and start deleting all of your maps and turning them into currency. And then when you wake up the next day, you run those 100 Mesas for the Alva missions, and then you unspec this node to fill your pool back up. That's one angle of using this node. The other one is potentially using this on the Conqueror Generation Atlas to try and have a higher chance of dropping a Conqueror map of that specific type. From the rough math I've done, it brings the chance from about 50% to drop your favorited map up to about a 75% chance to drop your favorited map if you have all maps unlocked and all favorite slots unlocked. Now, I don't believe it is more profitable for you to delete Conqueror maps into currency if perhaps there is a limited supply of the Sextant and you don't want to have to keep generating the maps. You can use this to drop the maps at a higher rate, albeit you're losing a little bit of money because those Conqueror maps have resale value. But I could see us using this to try and break into cemeteries early if there's not very many Sextants for sale and we just really want the Conqueror cemeteries. We could definitely spec this just to try and get a higher drop rate on those, and that's another way to use this keystone. Next one they teased is Stream of Consciousness. This makes it so your maps cannot be modified by fragments, and then it has a 50% more base chance to contain extra content. This is kind of cool for some solo players and low investment memes, but I don't see it having obviously any relevance in a party. If you're not putting good Scarabs on your map, it doesn't really matter. You're not going to get the value you want, so this is pretty much worthless in a party. Wandering Path is the next one they tease, which reads, Notable Atlas passive skills grant nothing, but it gives you 100% increased effect of small Atlas passive skills. Now, I tried crunching the numbers to see if you could get some pretty crazy quant numbers and effective mods, and unfortunately, I think you're just losing a little bit too much off the notables, specifically because you can't use martial forces, as well as you are unable to use the Fortune Favors the Brave mod, Shaping the Valleys. Shaping the Valleys gives you 10% quant rarity and pack size off the bat. That combined with the 20% quant and pack size from martial forces, it's just too big of a deficit from these 2 nodes alone to be made up from the effective mods you get up here at the top side, as well as the quant you get in the middle. Not to mention all the other stuff like the Beyond nodes, the extra Abyss mobs. It's just really too hard to make up on the Juicer Atlas. That being said, this keystone actually works amazing on the Conqueror Generation Atlas because it doubles the map drop duplication nodes that we have here. You grab every single map duplication node on the tree as well as the keystone that doubles it all. I believe you have something like a 39% chance to duplicate maps, which is absolutely crazy. The output on those Conqueror maps is going to be much higher than before. And if you're running the Alva generation on the same atlas, all you have to do is when you're running the maps for Alvas, you just simply unspec the node. It's quite easy to switch back and forth since it's just a simple keystone. So you're just using one unmaking. Grand Design here is the next keystone they teased here, which reads, your maps have a 1% increased pack size per allocated notable on on the Atlas passive skill tree. So the small passives we really care about are the quant, the effect of mods, and the pack size. You're immediately losing 15 quant and 20 rarity, which is an oof. Not to mention, I think the maximum you could get from a node like this is around 30 pack size, but you're honestly going to get more from that from just the effect of mods as well as all of the quant and rarity. It is just a no-brainer to never take this. This node is just actual trash. The numbers just don't work out. Twisted Fate is the next one. This could be cool for low investment solo play, but I don't ever see it having a place in a group, so we'll just move on. The next two on the list are the Wellspring ones. This is the Quinn build one. I don't ever see this being useful in a party. Like, you're just going to want to have the mobs do the same amount of damage and have the same amount of life. It just feels like you're kind of wasting points. Like, you should just have enough damage to kill everything. You're never going to be able to spend points like this that you wouldn't be able to spend on other juicing mechanics, so this is honestly just a waste. Shadow Shaping is a very interesting one. This is one of the keystones they tease, and it reads, maps found in your maps have a 1% chance to have a special implicit for each different map you have favorited, and it makes it so that those favorited maps that you have never drop. So you're essentially just deleting maps from your map pool entirely, and for each one you delete, you get a 1% chance to have the implicit on a map that you drop. Now, depending on the tier of the map you're trying to MF, this can actually have a niche use case. For example, I believe this league, Burial Chambers is a T16. If you were to use Shadow Shaping to delete all of the other T16s and a bunch of the T15s, you could actually get a pretty high chance, like 12% chance to drop those Burial Chambers with an implicit, and it's just extra juice at that point. I do believe that these implicits can actually roll some really crazy stuff too. I believe the implicits can have like 3 breaches or something like that. It can get really crazy. However, this really only works if the map is a natural high tier, being a 16 or maybe a 15, because obviously you want to roll a high tier map so that you can drop stuff like the Squire and Mage, Blood, and Headhunter. So you're going to be running like a T16 or a 15 anyways, and if you're up tiering something like a T4, when you have 3 or 4 Watchstones in, it adds way too many maps to the pool, and what that unfortunately means is you're not going to be able to block enough maps in order to make this worthwhile. Once again, because you're generating Conqueror maps, you kind of have to do it on the Conqueror Atlas, and in the current state of the popular MF maps, just the tier this time doesn't really condone this keystone to have a great place, although I could see some people that are farming specifically Burial Chambers for whatever reason taking this node. Although if you're farming Cemetery, this is definitely a non-factor. Eldritch Gaze was also a recent reveal that they had. Its Eldritch Altars have an additional downside, which are a lot worse than they were before. Think like downsides like Expedition. They're actually quite impactful. Here's an example from the live stream of one of the buffed altar effects. You can see here they have plus 10 max cold res and 10 lightning cold res, as well as plus 80 cold res and 80 lightning res. These are some pretty substantial buffs. The max res can really dip into your DPS if you don't have a substantial source of pen. Also, keep in mind when mobs get a bunch of flat resistances like this, where it's like 80%, if you're relying on curses for a lot of your pen, all that overcap that the mobs are getting is going to start eating into that curse DPS. But if you're playing a patented Snap OW Blade Vortex build, you will have no problems with damage on any of these mobs. You're just going to fucking delete everything as soon as it enters your screen. So this one's probably just gonna be an insta take. This is gonna drop you more shit, and because your builds are so powerful, you're probably not gonna care. The last one they released just this evening is Wrath of the Cosmos. Its Eldritch currency items have a 25% chance to be duplicated for each altar used in the area. However, you take 25% increased damage for each Eldritch altar used in the area, and 25% chance for lesser and greater Eldritch currency items to drop as Grand. Now, this node is super interesting, and I think it's going to be an insta-take. If we consider that in Scourge we were doing 300 Scourge stacks and taking 300% increased damage taken, yet we were still able to do those maps pretty comfortably. I think you can comfortably take this node if you're well prepared and well geared, because I think it's going to be pretty rare you're going to be taking more than like 12 altars in a single map, and at 12 altars you're going to be pretty much at a comparable level of increased damage taken that we were receiving in Scourge, so we know exactly how bad that will feel. That being said, the monetary reward for this I think is going to be pretty crazy. When you hit 4 altars, you're going to be duplicating every single currency item that drop, and then on top of that you're going to have a 25% chance for all of those to get up tiered to Grand Ickers. I really think that this might devalue a lot of the Icker market. I really think that groups are going to be dropping a shit ton of these just because of this one node alone. I think for us this is an insta take. However, if you don't have great gear, maybe your Mana Guardian isn't super geared, it's a little scuffed, maybe you don't take this right at the start, maybe wait until like day 4 or something where you have good gear and then take this later. All right, that about sums up all the keystones, all of the Atlas passive tree, all of those updates And so I'm going to run through in game here just kind of how you should be rolling your maps start to finish. So to give you guys some examples on how you should treat certain scenarios. First things first, you choose a map, you get the sextant. For the conquerors, you run the sextant here. This is the conqueror one. You generate your maps with all your favorite map slots, and now I have a bunch of conqueror maps that I can roll. First things first, these don't drop chiseled, so you do have to scour them and then chisel them up. Once they're chiseled, I like to throw them in a tab, and the first things first is to roll them for beyond. Depending on the prices of stuff, you can use chaos or you can use binding scours or alch scours. Just look at the prices of these items. If it makes sense to binding scour, use that. For this purpose, I'm just going to be chaosing. So when you're doing this, you can just type beyond in the bottom window here. You can grab your chaos or alchs or whatever and then go to town. All right, I'm not going to roll all of these, but I did roll a rotation of 4. So once we have beyond on the maps, we don't really care about the quantity or rarity on the maps quite yet. We just want to get the beyond roll on them. You do want to check for bad mods that you're not able to run. I have personally designed the builds to be able to run absolutely everything except for minus max, which is the most dangerous and rippy mod of them all because it affects your damage as well as your survivability because you're using nebulous. Other than that, everything else should be doable. It might be a little bit painful, but doable. Pain mods are minus aura effect as well as no regen, although no regen these days is less of an issue because we have introduced Vaal clarity into our party. So really some of the pain mods is just like if you get triple extra damage or if you get minus aura effect, you're going to be losing like 1, maybe 2 overcap. Other than that, most of the mods you really won't notice. If you do happen to get minus max as well as beyond, if you do have a map with 5 or 6 mods, it's worth trying to annul the minus max off your map because the average cost to try and get beyond again is going to be higher than trying to then double beast aug the map to full. Once you have a bunch of maps that have beyond on it and have open affixes, you're then going to take them to the menagerie. I would only do this step and beyond if you're in a 5 or 6 man party. You probably get away with doing this in a 4 man as well with a Kohler. However, the investment from this point on gets much, much higher. The Kriakic Savage Crab and Sakawai Cobra, as well as the 2 yellow beasts you need to do this craft once, is going to run you up about like 15 or maybe 20 chaos. So it's going to cost you 40C or 30C, somewhere in that ballpark, to bring your mod from a 4 mod to a 6 mod. If you're running like a 3-man party with not a ton of MF, it might be hard to justify some of these investment purchases, and I think I'd only recommend this if you really have like a Kohler and you're really juicing the rarity and stuff to try and get every ounce out of your map. So you beast dog your map, and this one is full. It has 3 suffixes and 3 prefixes. It has no bad mods like minus max, so this map is pretty much done. One of the last steps obviously is to grab your 5 deli orbs. Make sure you do this step. Don't do the non-white maps. We had a few oopsies last league where we inserted some of these without deli orbs, so last but not least is to grab one of these Vaal orbs and pray for the Giga Juice. Now, this is the worst outcome that you can get where it re-rolls the mods of the map. I do believe if you're going for the highest possible amount of juice, it is worth voling your maps, and there's a few reasons for that. This particular outcome went bad for me. However, it can go 8 mod or un-ID'd, which will add an additional 20 quant to your map. If it adds 8 mods, it's going to add an additional pack size as well as a quant and rarity as well. If you do get a shitty map like this, you can kind of put them to the side and maybe save them for when like somebody's offline or you don't have a full party, you just want to run something. You can maybe put these off to the side and kind of run them when there's a little bit of downtime maybe or somebody's not there. That's typically what we reserve these kind of maps for. Or you can look to sell them to people that aren't looking to do double beyond or aren't juicing as hard as you are, because these still do have resale value. For those who aren't aware of the recent Vaaling changes to T16 or red maps in general, the chance that you get a Vaal temple out of Vaaling a map is significantly decreased as of the 3.17 patch. They made that map a lot rarer. So you're going to get a lot more 8 mods and un-ID'd and a few bricks here or there, but you're going to get a lot less Vaal temples. From my testing, it's about like a 1 in 60 to Vaal a map into a Vaal temple. So 1 out of every 60 maps, you're going to be Vaaling into a Vaal temple. On top of that, with the new Voidstone structure, if you're running a T16 map already, because the map can't up tier, it technically can't brick into another thing. So your only outcomes are 8 mod, un-ID'd, a reroll, or it's going to go into a Vaal temple, which is very rare. And I think the potential that you roll an 8 mod or an un-ID'd, the amount of juice that will add to that particular map is super worth it if you're going to be bricking a map here or there. One of the last things to talk about here is going to be the Scarab choices, as well as the Zana map mod selection for this league. For Scarabs, we're going to be having 3 mandatory Scarabs, and that is going to be Div, Reliquary, Abyss. Those are the 3 mandates. I do have a strong feeling that Breach is going to be the strongest 4th Scarab. However, because of the new influence changes, we're going to be giving Elder Influence a try in place of the Breach Scarab because we do believe it is the weakest out of the ones that we are currently running. The Breaches also can get a little scuffed in the cemetery. It just introduces a ton of lag when you're pressing them, and so maybe the Elder maps might make maps go a little bit smoother for us. We're going to give it a try, although I do have a hunch that Breach still might be better. As for the Zana mods, here they are listed from the patch notes. Basically, because we're using Fortune Favors the Brave on shaping the valleys here, this is giving us quant rarity and pack size, and then we're running double beyond, one coming from the Sextant and one coming from the map mod. We're basically just running Fortune Favors the Brave to get the quant and pack size, and then we're just getting a choice of Breach, Anarchy, Essence, Domination, Metamorph, Harvest, Delirium. I do believe that a lot of these are going to be blocked on the new Atlas passives, so we're really using this for a chance at an extra Breach and maybe an Essence or a Metamorph, and then we're just paying 3C for some extra quant pack size and stuff like that. Speaking of blocks, here are all of the new Atlas passive nodes that block content, and here is a quick shorthand list of stuff that we are going to be blocking. Delirium is an easy one because we're using Deli Orbs. The mirror has a 0% chance to spawn, so that's just an extra 2% chance for the other content. We're skipping Ritual. It's just absolute dog shit in a party. Expedition is also complete dog shit in a party, and it's being skipped already. Harvest is kind of an oof in a party as well, because when you get into super laggy zones like Cemetery, going in between the harvests like is just a big rubber banding spree, and it's like we're just wasting our time. So it's really rough to go into the harvest unless you get them like super early on in the map. So I think it's worth a block to try and get maybe an extra in a Abyss or Breach or whatever can spawn as a result. One mistake you might make here is trying to block Heist. Do not do that. Definitely pick up your rogue markers, contracts, and blueprints. Even if you don't like engaging in Heist, just simply picking up contracts and selling them in bulk is super easy these days because you can actually search for particular types now, and you're definitely going to be throwing away a lot of money if you're blocking Heist, so do not do that. Yeah, I think that about wraps it up for our Atlas strategies, our juicing strategies. Hopefully this gives you guys a better idea on what our plans are for that. If you guys do have any questions, please leave comments. I read them all. I try to help you guys as much as I can. Once again, I do stream at every league start on twitch.tv/SnapOW, and I love to see you guys there. I want to thank all the people that are giving me support over there. It's been super fun, and I hope to see you guys all in the new league. We'll see you on Friday, and once again, I'm Snap, and thanks for watching.